Boop. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's just you and me now, audience. Now that we've rid ourselves of those pesky players, I can talk about all the cool secret stuff I'm planning. So I'm going to be talking a little bit. We'll probably hang out for 45 minutes, an hour, doing some GM stuff. I don't have a ton to do in Roll20, but I have done some work already. I want to show you with the Duel of Wits. I also want to talk about some spoilery stuff for the game. So if you want to be surprised by things like NPCs and political intrigues and those kinds of things, you might want to take a hike. But if you want to be my secret co-GM and hang out and learn special stuff, this is the time. This is it. I've been meaning to do some sort of GM work. Obviously I can't conjure a map, a character relationship map now on the fly, but I'm going to add one. If you watched any of the Apocalypse World stuff, you know that is something that because I don't need my headphones anymore, something that I really like about being a GM, and a tool that I really like using to interconnect characters. So we're going to be putting Simon Cobbler and John Booker, the philosopher Gertrude, this Duke, and we're going to start building this relationship map. So I'll show that to you in secret next time we play. But I do want to show you something cool. So Golden WH, who's a big fan of the show, a while back on Reddit let me know that that there was some cards that he made. So I've introduced them into Roll20, and I want to show you how I made the card deck work, and talk a little bit about the subsystems that we're going to be using in Burning Wheel going forward. So each time we do another forward motion through the game, from section to section, I'm going to add a new mechanic. We've been playing with some of the parts of the rules, the sort of basic core stuff. We've been using circles. We've been using the resource mechanics. We use those a couple of times. So we're not using nothing. We're using the kind of the core guts of the game. But there's a system called Duel of Wits, a system called Range and Cover, and a system called Fight. And each one of those we're going to introduce as we go. We may never use Range and Cover. I could see the Woodsman using it, but pretty much nobody else. It's for squad tactics and taking hilltop forts and stuff. It's sort of war focused. Duel of Wits, first episode we're probably going to run to one. So the Duel of Wits, if you watch the Mouse Guard episode that we did, it uses cards hidden cards to indicate actions, and then you reveal them simultaneously to show what happens. So if I'm in an argument, let's imagine that I'm playing the philosopher Erasmus, and I am having a intense debate in a public house with Basil about what is to be done with the lower classes. And basically you start your argument by determining what you want. So I might say, I want to embarrass Basil in front of this crowd. And Basil might say, I want to undermine the philosopher Erasmus's position among the people. I want to make him seem less like he's a sane philosopher. So we determine what we're going to do, and then we roll to create basically our hit points. I've created an add-on. I added this in. So this is what Duel of Wits looks like. So you create your body of argument. So you roll your will exponent, and you pick one of the skills. So like oratory or persuade or manipulate. You roll, your successes are added to your will exponent, and that counts as your hit points. It's called your body of argument. And it will slowly go down, and you keep track of where you started and how much you have left if you win, because at the end, even if I were to win, there's concessions that need to be made. So I might get what I want. I might say, okay, cool, well, Basil looks like a fool. But in secret, some of the people I made Basil look like a fool in front of actually believed what he said, and they're going to go and talk to him later. So that's a concession that I could make as a GM. And then in each volley, so each section is made up of 3 volleys each round, you choose one action. And again, if you're familiar with Mouse Guard, you know, these are like the attack, maneuver, feint, defend. But instead, we see point, dismiss, avoid, obfuscate, rebuttal, feint, and incite. We're going to skip the magic actions. They're not going to use... They'll use hesitation if they get incited, but it's really, really cool. So I could say, okay, I'm going to make a point, then I'm going to avoid, and then I'm going to rebut. I'm going to make a rebuttal. And so each one gives you 2 or 3 sections of guidance. So if I am, for example, the core is point, right? I'm making a point. So you can see here. If you make a point, you test coarse persuasion, interrogation, oratory, persuasion, poisonous platitudes, rhetoric, or stentorious debate. One of those skills. So you would probably test oratory. Speaking the point tells you how to roleplay that. So the point action is your main attack on the verbal duelist. Hammer away using your statement of purpose and related points. So you might just make a point. You might orate. This stuff is all burned in. It's all built into the Burning Wheel, and this is part of why I love the Burning Wheel so much. You can play... I played a lawyer in one of my early games of Burning Wheel, and it was so much fun. So here's what happens. Let's do an example. So using these cards, I'm going to choose the card that I want. So I'm going to... Okay, let's say I'm going to make a point, and they're dealt face down, so no one can see them. I'm going to make a point, then I'm going to avoid... I'm going to avoid the subject. Okay. And then I'm going to, what did I say? I'm going to rebut. I'm going to make a rebuttal. Okay. So I set those out. Now my opponent, in this case Basil, would be chosen, he would choose the options that he's going to do. So he might like incite, point, and then obfuscate. And so what happens is that on each volley, we would reveal our cards together. So I would say, okay, volley 1, what are you doing? I'm going to flip my card over, and Basil's going to flip his card over. And then we compare. We look at point versus incite. So on the handout that I created, we can say, okay, I'm making a point, and you are inciting. So point versus incite. Oh, it's a standard test. So we both just get to make our point. We get to do our thing, and sorry, I need some water. And then say we get to role play, and then do the thing. So so in this case, to role play, we would say, okay, what do we have to do? So point is making a point. Incite is I think you insult them. Yeah, with an acid tongue and biting wit, a character attempts to distract or dismay his opponent. The speaking player must pronounce an outright insult to his opponent. So we might say, okay, it doesn't matter what order we do these in. So I'm going to say, as the philosopher Erasmus, I could say, the poor deserve further enfranchisement than they have been given by the revolution. Even though in name they are equals, in spirit we treat them like garbage. Right? That's my point. So I just get to roll, and any successes I get causes damage to their body of argument. Right? Easy. Standard is just by my successes. Then Basil could incite me. Basil could say, the philosopher Erasmus didn't even attend philosophy school. I studied with the philosopher Gertrude, and you, sir, are an obvious fool. Right? He gets to test, and if he succeeds, he can beat my will exponent, then I hesitate, and the rest of my actions are lost. So you just go back and forth, basically just making points and comparing and contrasting until the argument is over or until you run out of options. So again, like in this one, he's making a point and I'm avoiding. So in this case, it's a versus test, I think. Let's take a quick look. So point versus avoid. Yeah, it's a versus test. So he makes a point and then I avoid it. So he could say, the reality of the situation is there are just too many poor in the city for us to handle right now. We're doing the best we can, and all we can do is that, right? That these things take time. And for me, I've got to avoid, so I look at my Duel of Wits and I say, okay, what is avoid? Veer off topic, even to the point of sounding desperate or ridiculous. And I could say, well, Basil, you lived in the woods. You lived in the woods for 16 years. What do you know about the ways of men? We're not bears, we're not squirrels. If I wanted to ask you about something, your opinion on something, I would ask you for your opinion on the trees, or the grass, or the snow in winter. Stick to nature. It's veering wildly off the point, and it allows you to try to dodge the attack that's coming up against you with this point. And so, again, you just keep flipping, revealing, comparing, until someone runs out of body of argument. And then at the end, you make a concession depending on how well you did against your opponent. So either a minor concession, a significant concession, or you can both just die at once. You can both just say, well, we both lost. We both look like fools. You know? So this situation, this mechanic, the Duel of Wits, it's used for two things. It's used for resolving sort of plot dramatic moments, right? Like, okay, all of the characters are being tried for treason. Okay, this is important. Or it's used for Duel of Wits when you'd use it when characters have a belief about a thing. So if Basil has a belief that's like, I will send the philosopher Erasmus back where he came from by proving what a fool he is in front of all these people, then we would use Duel of Wits. Otherwise, we just roll. We just say, okay, oratory versus oratory. Say it, move it, let's go, right? So this card-based system, this sort of flipping the cards and revealing and comparing, we're going to see more of that in the game for this particularly. But later, we're going to see it more for the fight system for dueling. So Woodsman, Agnes, and the Rooster can, well, and Basil as well, but they'll all be able to use this similar kind of system. Now, fight is, I would say, twice as complicated, because fighting is about, there's twice as many actions. It's all parry, riposte, dodge. The weapons that you have and how long they are affect it. So if I have a knife, I'm at an advantage being up in your face. And if you have a long sword, you want to hold me back. And so you're going back and forth. It feels very much like an Errol Flynn kind of swashbuckling situation. But what's cool about this is that we might never need to use those, right? You could do an entire game. This is why this game fits for things like Game of Thrones, where, yes, you can do the, like, scrappy battle, but you can also play a lawyer or a priest and have political debates to win what you want. It's very cool, and I'm really excited to show it to you as we get to that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the NPCs and some of the stuff in our fine city of Freiburg. I think this is actually a map of the sort of real world Freiburg. I thought it was cool. Ours is a coastal city, but I wanted to have a cool looking map to take a look at while we were playing. So Freiburg. What's been happening since they left? So let's do a little history lesson on Freiburg. So I forget, maybe it's been stricken from the history books, but it used to be called something else. Like the home of the Empress. And there was a revolution. The revolution was empowered by a new sort of splinter church, a sort of New Testament version of the religion that the nun in Graustadt followed. And this new religion raised up the lower classes, essentially created the middle class, and tore down the aristocracy, removed the nobility from power. The Empress was killed by Rooster, and this revolutionary council took over. So now the council is in charge of Freiburg, and by extension the sort of world. Now, as revolutions are often, it's flawed, right? They were following the precepts of Gertrude, the philosopher Gertrude, who had left this oppressive place to go live in the wilds, who trained her student Basil, who returned and helped foment this revolution. But the revolution hasn't been doing so well. So what's kind of happened in the meantime? I think that Freiburg is undergoing a famine. People are starving because all these people have come piling into the city from the fields and the woods because their dukes have been abusing them, because they're like, no, the abuses of the dukes are too much for us to handle, and we're gonna come live in the city. And so refugees have crowded the city. The dukes are fighting, right? Like, not all the dukes, like most of the dukes in the city kind of gave up after, or they were executed, but they gave up on the fight. And now what we end up with is just this overpopulated city with not enough food. The fields aren't being worked. Things are just going very badly. And so as a result, the sort of political environment is starting to change. So I've got some notes that I made today, and I've been thinking about this for a while, basically since we started the game. But so one, I want to start thinking about adversaries, right? A lot of the advice that I've gotten about running Burning Wheel from Tor and from Luke, who are the editor and designer of the game respectively, have been about creating antagonists that feel real. And I've been thinking a lot about Tor's this advice that Tor gave me at Gen Con this year, where he was saying create adversaries who do horrible things for a good purpose, or good things for a horrible purpose. Right? And so I've been thinking a lot about that and how I can create adversaries that sort of fit that mold. I want to give Basil someone to get in arguments with, and I want Basil to feel like he's out of touch politically. So I've created this NPC named the philosopher Erasmus. And Erasmus he's the guy who said the revolution didn't go far enough. Erasmus said, The revolution is a moderacy. The revolution is uncommitted. The Revolutionary Council are a failure, and we need to go farther. We need to evaporate the government. I think he's going to be this like anarchistic, bloodthirsty firebrand, basically. Like, he just doesn't. He's the guy that is like, no. If we want to be true to Gertrude, we gotta go further. We gotta go harder. I think that he's a new voice in the city, and he's like demanding the dissolving of the Revolutionary Council, the execution of all prisoner dukes. Yes, he's a Jacobin lunatic. You got it. My two main inspirations for this game are the French Revolution, obviously, French Revolution, and Russia, the Tsarist transferring into communist Russia. That's where I'm getting most of my my kind of feels about this game. So Erasmus is my you haven't gone far enough. We gotta keep going. We gotta do it. So Erasmus is going to be a character that's going to come up directly against the players. Now, Erasmus, he's becoming quite popular because there are all these hungry people. There's these people literally without bread. So Agnes is going to get tied into this, the idea of keeping people fed, supporting the middle class to exist. But Erasmus's work is being spread by the advent of a strange new machine. So this strange new machine, designed by a foreign scientist and engineer who has come to the city with the promise of revolution. Her name is Avelina Fabro, and she invented a device that allows Erasmus's ideas to be mass-produced. Pamphlets of his screeds fill the city, being published from secret places throughout the city. There's a newspaper in the novel Perdido Street Station that I'm particularly inspired by in this. So this is the revolutionary press, basically, and so the printing press doesn't exist in the setting, but I've just created it. So Avelina and the philosopher Erasmus are working together with a bunch of other revolutionaries to... So Twilight Spark asked, can people read, though? And now we talked about this being a big deal even before, that everyone in the setting can read. This is something that we explicitly pointed out, that unless you're a slave, you probably can read and write. So I'm gonna turn that around on the players and be like, cool. So Erasmus's words are spreading. And yeah, the printing press is like brand new. It became a thing over the winter, and yeah. So someone is asking. Breen View is asking, curious about the ethnic composition of Freiburg. We talked about that too. Freiburg is made up of in the long past of like immigrants and travelers from all kinds of places. So it's we explicitly said that the majority of people there are not of one particular ethnicity. They are all of Freiburg. Freiburg is a political affiliation and a culture, but not a race. So the name is Germanic, but yeah, lots and lots of people of color, massive diversity of people there. Even in the party, like. I don't remember if we have talked about the woodsman's ethnicity, and I think Agnes is like primarily sort of like Dutch or German, but the Rooster and Basil are both people of color. So definitely yeah, diversity is a big part of what I want in my game. So we made Freiburg that way. It's absolutely cosmopolitan. In fact, the revolution has made it slightly less cosmopolitan. That was one thing we looked at as a problem of the revolution. Okay, so Erasmus and Avelina and the secret press, and yeah, and that's a thing. I want to talk about religion too. So a new splinter religion called the Doomsayers Guild, or the Black Robes, or the Left Hand Sword. They are a splinter religion of old sort of fundamentalists from the old religion that see. They're a splinter sect that basically sprung up when the Empress was killed, and they're growing in popularity as the population swells, and as this famine goes on, because as people get hungry, they turn to religion. They're looking for answers, and these people's answer is the world is dying. Like, killing the Empress killed the world. The 12 who are cursed, they are the horsemen of the apocalypse. That's it. They've destroyed civilization. We're doomed. This is it. There's no going back. The reason they're called the left-hand sword is because they see the Empress. So in these apocryphal texts, there was a figure, a child figure, who was known as the right hand of God. And in the apocryphal texts, there's some passage about the severing of the right hand of God. And so these people, as a sign of devotion, cut off their right hand and wield a sword with their left. So they're left hand. They're the left hand sword. The Doomsayers Guild, the Black Robes. They're not. I don't want to portray them as like an insane like demon cultist. They're a political movement more than anything, and they're rallying these like sick and hungry people, these sick and hungry people to burn down the current order so they can build a new thing on top of it, right? They're religious opportunists, but most of them believe, that the world is on its way out. So yeah, the left hand sword. They're going to be a big deal. And then generally kind of what I want everyone to come back to is the idea that the Revolutionary Council is running out of money, it's running out of food, and the people are like, where is our promise of prosperity? Where's the real truth of the revolution? Bring us Gertrude, show us that we've done the right thing. And I want to put the players in a position to have to make hard decisions between the revolution they started and the reality of life in an intense new sort of civilization. Now, these guys, the Black Robes, like people are talking about this a lot in chat, which is awesome. They're not all like, let's all cut off our hand. Like, only the most fanatic of them. Most of them probably wear like black gloves on their right hand as a symbol of mourning, or like tie a black ribbon around their wrist. But the real serious ones, they're the ones that cut their hands off, right? And then plus, of course, the thing that we need to think about is that Agnes, Rooster, Basil, and the Woodsman, they're only 4 of 12. There are 8 more cursed with the mark of the burning wheel. which we know has a deeper spiritual significance in the world, right? That there are other wheels. The wheel of 5 is the burning wheel, but that we talked a little bit about the wheel of 8, the wheel of Earth. So there's room for expanding the slightly more supernatural stuff, because we've acknowledged that supernatural things exist in the world. So yeah, I'm pretty into it. I honestly don't have like a solid idea of who the other 12 are. We'll figure it out as we go. Or the rest of the 12, the rest of the cursed. But we'll definitely fill that in as we go. Yeah, so these are the things I've been thinking about. In GMing Burning Wheel, you really just think about... You really think less about like the world at large and more like what we can use to push the characters. The GM's job in, let's say, like Apocalypse World is about enforcing the idea of reality in the game. To do it, you do it, right? Pushing things forward, making moves, snowballing the action forward. But in Burning Wheel, the point is to challenge the players. The point is to, and if you watch the trait vote, you saw me doing this. It's about saying, oh, you believe that? Well, what about this? Oh, you think that life isn't worth living? What if I give you something to live for? Then, what if I make another player try to take it away from you? What if I orchestrate you to positions where we learn about you because you're in stress, you're in a position of like pain and trauma, or like suddenly you're in this position of like sudden wealth or happiness. What would you be doing? What are you willing to do to like hang on to that stuff that you have? So there's a lot to go on from here, and we're going to be introducing and sort of pressing on the relationships the characters have. I want to learn everything I can about Simon Cobbler. I'm going to know. I can't wait until poor bastard Rooster shows up at John Booker's gambling house. I have some ideas about what John Booker is like. The idea of the criminal underworld, because these bastards are like peddling drugs. They're pushing prostitution, gambling, vice, right? Like illegal vice. And people need religion in times of trial, but they need booze and drugs and release. They need escape. So so I'm gonna be using John Booker to give us a doorway into that dark world. I expect a lot of post-traumatic stress Rooster, I'm excited to see how that goes. And then obviously like Gertrude and this prisoner Duke. Like you'll notice that I built everything in the setting around the characters and their relationships. So that's where we're going. That's what we're gonna focus on. So I think that like aside from maybe putting some stats or some beliefs to some of these characters, I think I'm pretty much ready to jump back into Freiburg. Actually, in a lot of ways, it's sort of nice for the players that they're going to have a bit of a break to think about their post trait vote character beliefs and instincts, because they're going to change pretty dramatically. I think Freiburg is going to be. This is the real start. That was all kind of like arc 0. This is going to be the first arc where we really get to like get in deep with the characters. I expect this to take 12 to 15 episodes and really dig into some of this stuff. And what I love about it is that it's mechanized, right? Like if you've watched me GM other shows, like particularly Mirror Shades or Swan Song, I take a lot of my GMing, my sort of push the players, try to like get them to prove that they actually care about their things their characters claim to care about. Like I GM that way a lot of the time, especially for Swan Song, but I love that this game makes it so easy for me, that the mechanisms reward the players for playing their characters. So big things coming for the Burning Wheel. We're gonna pick up again next Friday, so Friday at 5:00, yeah, more Burning Wheel then. So thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry that we cut it short, but it's really nice to get to sit down with you and talk to you about character and the Burning Wheel particularly. And I'm so proud of my players. Like Colin especially has really taken just such a shine to his character and to the setting and system. Like it's if you didn't know this already, like Colin is a pretty inexperienced role player. I think this is like basically his first like long-term campaign, and it's so impressive watching him pick up and run with the Burning Wheel. Austin and Jess have never played the Burning Wheel, and they're both doing an amazing job. And of course, Andrew makes my job fantastic every time I play. It's brilliant. He's very easy to to push on, and he pushes back. So I'm really excited to see when the characters start to come into conflict, because that's the thing that Burning Wheel does well. We're going to see player versus player Duel of Wits are absolutely a thing. They happen constantly. Honestly, like, and this is anecdotal like stuff from Luke, but part of why they created the Duel of Wits was because a lot of the time in games there aren't systems for resolving what the players want to do as a group. So if I'm like, well, I think we should go and kill Erasmus, and someone else is like, no, we can't kill Erasmus, that's a terrible idea, and they argue, this is what Duel of Wits is for. You can just be like, cool, my character argues with your character. If I win, you agree to do what I want. If I win, or if you win, then I agree to back down, and we don't do it. So anyway, I'm curious to see, let's start placing bets. Do you think it'll be a Duel of Wits between two players, or if it's going to be Basil and somebody else some NPC as our first Duel of Wits? Either way, it's going to be really exciting. So I hope you'll come back for more, and it's always a pleasure having you. I think that's it for today. I'm Adam Coble, in case you didn't know. I'm the GM for this show and for Old School Adventures, which we run on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm also a full-time streamer at twitch.tv/Adam Coble, where I stream video games. So yeah, tune in next time. Go check out Roll20. All of the character sheet stuff is built into Roll20, and I'll post a Reddit thread if you have questions. You want to do some Q&A action about today's little mini episode, and I can talk a little bit more about anything you're curious about there. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for coming. Bye, everybody.